This week, more Jack Kirby Captain America work from 1977. Cap finds himself somewhere south of the border, being taken to a prison camp run by a notorious man known as the Swine, in a story that reeks of editorial interference. Was this story meant to be something other than what it is? First, I'd like to thank our patrons for helping to keep the show going. You can pitch in by pledging at least $2 a month at patreon.com/deconcomics. This is Tim.
This is Emmet.
And this is Deconstructing Comics. Welcome to Deconstructing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo with Emmet in Country Victoria, Australia. Greetings.
Hello. It is a dark and dreary day. We've gone through baking hot summer's days to stormy, cloudy, bleak, winter feeling weather in one day, the space of one day.
So we're continuing with Kirby Captain America from the 70s. We've read through issues 206 through 208 this time. The story of the Swine, who glancing at it, I expected he was going to be like a Nazi, but he's not.
He's not a Nazi in the literal sense.
Right.
He's not a Nazi.
Acts in a way that's stereotypical of Nazis, but
he is a South American dictator / torturer / real nasty piece of work. And around the same point in time, so this was mid-70s, around the same point of time, one Augustin Pinochet was operating in Chile. So that's where I was going. So not a Nazi, but not far off.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I think Kirby's sort of drawing that connection. Because yes, the Swine, we associate that with Hollywood depictions of German Nazi soldiers.
Schwein.
Swine. But no, he's the Swine, and he is in a unnamed South American country.
Yeah.
How do we know we're in South America? Nobody shaves. Nobody shaves. That's a little detail that it's like those. Whenever you have depictions of a Latin American country in a movie, there's usually like a filter on the lens to make it look slightly orange and yellow. That's how you know you're south of the border. How do you know in a comic book? They don't shave the men. The men are...
Yeah, so this 206 is dated February 1977. I also should say that this story didn't go where I was expecting it to go, which I was glad of, because I was envisioning several frustrating / boring issues of Cap in the prison, not able to get out, but that's not what happens at all. So,
I mean, that is true. But we do have several boring and uninteresting passages where people sit around a room saying, "Where is Cap right now? Why can't we find him? We should find him. Well, I don't know where he is. Somebody's looking for him." Multiple scenes of that.
Yeah. All right. So issue 206, Captain America and the Falcon, trapped in the domain of the Swine, although they're not actually trapped there. A soul-searing thriller, Prison of Death. And the Swine is whacking some poor guy with a stick, and there are other prisoners behind him who are shackled with their arms up. And there's a watchtower and searchlights in the background. All right, so we pick up at S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. Layla and Sam are completely over the brainwashing. Cap really downplays it, like, a little brainwashing doesn't last forever, shrug. Not such a big deal.
There is some unintentional comedy this issue with Sam Layla's recovery, there's a couple of, their relief is played almost for comic effect. To the point where they are not really aware of anything else that's going on around them, with the exception of one incident in a restaurant. But yes, they're sort of being played as slightly comical. It is strange. I do feel like they are underwritten as characters, because we've just gone from them being brainwashed to them behaving like horny teenagers, relieved that they're not brainwashed.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all we get.
Also, just like with Rick Jones and the Captain Marvel stuff we read for the Patreon show, I don't know that any human has ever talked the way that Sam and Layla talk.
No. It is like listening to a Fox News anchor talking about what is woke. Saying, you don't know what half of those words mean. You shouldn't be saying them. There is a sort of pretense at, I know the lingo, I speak jive. Like that scene from Airplane.
Yep.
And it is unfortunate because then, Steve is with it. So Steve is also going to speak in a similar way. And it's like, no. Just stop. Just stop all of this.
Yes, trying too hard there, Kirby. And they're kind of, I don't know even how to characterize it. But Sam's saying, it's time to leave Nightmare Alley behind us, woman. The good times are just around the corner. She says, yes, Sam, yes. Holy romance comic. And Cap asked the doctor if it's okay for them to leave. And he said, yeah, they've been signed out. I thought you'd be gone by now. Like, okay. All right, let's go. And, of course, Cap is still concerned about Sharon and her weird attitude that doesn't fit with my conception of the Sharon Carter character at all. About Cap is like addicted to danger and he doesn't care about her. He just wants, he's a little boy who won't grow up. Like, jeez.
Yeah, I mean, he talks about Sharon, or he makes reference to Sharon in front of a number of other characters, including the pilot we'll see in the next sequence, but Dr. Hartman, Sam and Layla. And everyone's advice more or less boils down to, women. And her point of view, like, in fact, as far as what we are receiving in this sequence of issues, what Sharon is saying makes sense. It makes perfect sense. If you want to have a life with me, if you want to have a relationship with me, you need to stop throwing yourself at every single problem that comes along. Makes sense. And the way the sort of events play out, she's presented as being irrational every time. But it's like where all the fans of the TV show Breaking Bad universally decided that the wife character was the villain of the show. Because they needed to sustain their affection and interest in the main character, who was a criminal. So there is something to that. There is this sense of, but then the story doesn't happen.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, then the story, if you stay home and have a relationship with Sharon, then we don't have a Captain America comic.
Right. Yeah. So it's not going to happen. So
yeah, but from the character's point of view, everything she's saying is correct. This is not a way to conduct a life.
Yeah, but I feel like it's really overplayed, though. I mean, she's like kind of going crazy with it, and the way that she delivers the concerns comes off sounding irrational.
Yes. Yeah. And then, he then is just basically whinging in this way, where he's like, leave me alone. Yeah. I don't want to do my homework. I don't want to eat my vegetables. I don't want to have a relationship with you. He just comes off as a whinger. But I think the intent is for him to be frustrated, reasonably frustrated because he needs to be a hero.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think there is a opportunity to tell a story. I mean, Paul Chadwick's comic book Concrete, I feel sort of lived in this space where it's like, well, sure, you've got superpowers, but you need to have a life. And if you want to have a relationship, and if you want to have friends, if you want to have a job, if you want to, you need to put that to one side. And that's kind of what Chadwick made hay with that. There is a story to be told there. What if Captain America took the opportunity not to be punching supervillains in the face, but to maybe enter political life, or maybe become a public advocate? My cat is throwing things around the table here. There is maybe stories to be told here, but no. In fact, the story we're reading, there is an issue where all of a sudden a supernatural element enters the proceedings, and I was like, what the hell happened here?
Yeah, it was really abrupt. We'll get to
I thought
that,
we were doing a political narrative about people being disappeared in a South American nation, but now we've got this situation.
Yeah.
So I felt like Sharon all of a sudden, because I was like, wait, no, now this ridiculous nonsense is happening. Steve, you need to be serious about us. Stop running away and fighting interdimensional street people who've taken over an asylum in another dimension. Yeah, that is nonsense. Don't do that.
But yeah, the Doctor says, nonsense. True love will surmount any trial. Whatever. Yeah, well, we're 10 minutes in and we're still like on page 3. So let's move ahead here. So, wow, S.H.I.E.L.D. has an airport. Didn't know that, but they're taking off to go back to New York. Cap, Falcon, Sharon, and the pilot, who hears Cap talking about Sharon and thinks, woman trouble. I bet he'd rather tangle with the Red Skull.
Isn't this like a version of what the billionaire cowboy was also saying? He also had some, woman trouble. I've had all these women, and then Steve Rogers is like, oh, you've got it figured out. And I was like, he's a creep. Steve, don't be friends with him.
But now Cap is kind of downplaying again. He says, oh, Sharon will turn around. A few laughs will do it. That sounds really dismissive.
It sounds like he's going to, like, he sounds like a middle-aged man who's just trying to pour martinis down his wife's throat so she'll lighten up. It's a bit weird.
Yeah. So they get back to New York, and then we switch to the prison in the unnamed South American country, or Central American, who knows, Hispanic, somewhere south of the U.S. And there are a couple of shirtless prisoners there who got in trouble. And so one of them, so they're being starved, of course. And one of them is, what do I want to say?
We're told that the line we're told here is, we've brought them, Commandante. These are the two who caused the disorders at this morning's work detail. Now, disorders could be everything from standing up to being tortured, pushed around by the guards, or what's likely, given the state of the men, they fell over. They collapsed. They couldn't actually perform the menial, torturous tasks that the Swine has set for them to do. Because we know, over the course of these issues, like, these prisoners are being tortured.
Yeah.
Sadistically tortured. So this is where punishment is, the human body being pushed to the limit and then pushed past it by these somewhat Nazi-styled guards and soldier types. But again, they're not officially Nazis.
Right. But, this is comics code. So I think maybe it doesn't quite have the impact that it might because you can only do Comics Code approved torture, which excludes a lot, I think.
Well, it's still quite brutal. Like what we see here is still devastating. Like it's very, very rough. I mean, but given that this is being defanged as a sort of depiction of a South American, Latin American country, if we're reading between the lines, I think the implication is these are political prisoners. I think that's the implication. So the object of the exercise is to break them, to break their will, to break their spirit, to turn them into servile, zombie-like victims. And that's what this whole process is about. So going off that, I think we're looking at a American comic book depicting a right-wing dictatorship in South America, which may or may not be benefiting from American assistance, but we can't say that out loud. So there's lots of sort of dancing around whatever it is we're being shown here.
Yeah, a lot of it is vague. I don't think there's any statement of why these people are in prison at all. But yeah, they may well be political prisoners. So one of them is led to a table full of the Swine's birthday dinner, and so the Swine says, "Go ahead, eat whatever you want." And so you're thinking, okay, what the other shoe's going to drop here? What's this going to... It looks like he's being nice, but he's not being nice. So what's going to happen? But we switch scenes to Sam and Cap and their women, to use the language of the comic.
Well, yeah, we've gone from a scene where the Commandante, the Swine, is force-feeding this prisoner this beautiful banquet meal to our four heroes at a club complaining about having to wait for the food. Complaining about the delay of being served.
Right. The waiter says, "Finally got your order, folks. It's a busy night." And this waiter, his name is Felix, and we get a page of just conversation among the four of them, and of course, again about Sharon's concerns. In your business, people are invariably inclined to mass murder. Sam wants some pie a la mode. But then a couple of guys come in and point guns at Felix, the waiter, and they're trying to arrest him, and they start hitting him. And, of course, Steve and Sam are drawn to the situation, what's going on here. And pretty soon guns are being fired, and it's a full-on fight in the restaurant.
I mean, yeah, it kicks off because Sam gets involved. But, Steve actually... Sharon doesn't want them to get involved at all. Sharon's
of course.
Don't get involved because I'm now all of a sudden allergic to violence. Steve, though, is also hesitant because he's thinking, well, they're policemen and he's resisting arrest. Mm-hmm. So there is a sort of unquestioning respect for authority.
Until it gets to police brutality, then it's stepped over the line for him.
But Sam from the jump is like, no, this is bad. This is not on.
Yeah. Hey, those two dudes are punching out Felix. We've got to... Yeah, and Steve says the line you mentioned. And Sam calls one of the cops Poncho.
Oh, dear.
Okay. So this fight is going on, and then we switch back to the Swine and the prisoner who is now in pain from eating all this food. And the Swine is now forcing stuff down his throat, forcing him to drink all the wine. And pretty soon the guy is dead. The other prisoner is angry. You killed him. You knew what was going to happen when all that food was jammed into his starved and shrunken stomach. And he calls the Swine the Swine. His real name is Hector Santiago, as in where in the world is Hector Santiago? No, that's something else. And so for calling him the Swine shoots and kills him.
Right. This is a brutal sequence.
Yeah.
It's the worst thing in these 3 issues in terms of like something graphic and upsetting and so on and so forth. It's also the most chilling and powerful sequence. After this issue, things start getting a bit sloppy, but
Yeah.
we are in the sort of in the crosshairs of Kirby, depicting fascism, depicting the violence of authoritarianism vis-a-vis like dark side and things like that. Employing Holocaust imagery, employing Nazi imagery, fascist imagery to sort of make his points. And I feel as if this issue, I wonder if somebody had a word afterwards.
Yeah, it could be.
Because all of a sudden the tension just went out of it.
Yeah, it's kind of like somebody pointed to the corner of the cover and said, "See this stamp? We want to keep this stamp here." So, yeah, rein it in.
You know what this stamp means? No black astronauts. This is what this stamp means. Arbitrary racism? That's what this stamp means.
So we see the prisoners are all doing this backbreaking work, carrying stones around. I mean, is there any purpose to it? I don't know. Maybe it's just to make them work. Other people are strung up by their wrists and grumbling among themselves how they'd like to kill the swine. So we got a little bit better idea what's going on there. And then we go back to New York after the fight. Sam and Layla are driving away. Steve and Sharon are seeing them off. And then they go to Sharon's apartment to try to talk through their differences. But those cops from before are following them. And they're like, we got to bring somebody back. Anybody's fine. Doesn't have to be the guy we were sent here to arrest.
Yellow hair will do as well.
Any human is fine.
Just a quick aside. I appreciate how much time I've already taken on this issue, but a quick aside, I can't help but notice the pillar in Sharon's apartment with the strange Kirby-style design along the length of the pillar.
Oh, like that's in the lobby? Yeah.
Yeah. It's just interesting little detail.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is.
It's just, Kirby contemporary art.
Yeah, I can't really tie that to any particular like ethnic style or art school or anything. It's just, some white kind of winding ribbons among some black and red something or other.
It's like a rhizomate sequence. It's like a rhizome, and it also happens to look like, you're right. It happens to look like it could be a Aztec or a
Chinese or Native American
some sort of hieroglyph. But it also happens to look somewhat futuristic, which is that Kirby essence, looking like something from the ancient past, something like the far off future, simultaneously, So it's pure Kirby, and if I had the means, I think I'd like to commission something like this. Looks like something I'd like in my home.
So these guys had hoped that they could grab Sam, but he's gone. But yellow hair will do as well, which is, of course, Steve. So Steve and Sharon are in her apartment and arguing some more about Steve's alleged addiction to action, and why did he have to jump into the scene in the restaurant. And she says, you haven't got the courage to choose between your uniform and our happiness. He says it isn't a matter of courage. The issue is dedication. You can kind of see both sides here, but apparently Sharon didn't lock the door. And one of those guys is in the hallway with a gas mask on. He's opened the door and he's shooting this knockout gas into the apartment. And so in mid-argument, Steve and Sharon are both knocked out. And the guys are... Now, I have to say here, I should have mentioned it before, Steve's suit, these black, blue and white stripes, in a number of panels going forward, it looks like he's wearing pajamas.
Right. So I was going to ask about this. So just even his look, like he's quite bulked out. He's broad. He's very broad. His face is broad. And he's got his hair is styled in a certain way. And I was thinking, who does this remind me of? Who does this remind me of? And I think the reference for me is Burt Lancaster. And Burt Lancaster in, I want to say, The Sweet Smell of Success. And, you know, where he's playing a sort of con artist. But I've seen other characters, like Glorious Godfrey, you know, is clearly Burt Lancaster as well. So I think we talked about this in relation to the previous Captain America issues we talked about, where it was like, oh yeah, Kirby's watching some midnight movies, and this is where this plot came from. I think he was going through a Burt Lancaster kick, and he just decided to model Steve on him, because Steve is usually, more compact. You know, he's not as broad. And then the sequence we have later where he's on a plane really plays up this musculature more. So that was my thinking, that the style of suit is something that Lancaster wore in one of those movies from that era. And maybe Kirby just had that as reference. He was just drawing on it.
Okay, but yeah, I was kind of shrugging, saying, well, it was the 70s, kind of loud clothes, but...
That's from the 50s. I think it's from the, like, what we keep running into these movies, these comic books, is like the frame of reference, whether they be movies or television or whatever, that these artists are drawing on is usually from 20 years prior. Like the Ditko Spider-Man issues were a divil for that stuff.
Yeah, all the fedoras.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think we sort of remember the version of the 60s that we've inherited is like nobody was wearing hats. But like lots of people were wearing hats. Not wearing a hat was actually the unusual thing. But now, because that became fashionable, now we're told, oh yeah, no one was wearing hats. Everyone was wearing like the Indian style of shirt and like loose breezy blouses and stuff like that. Nobody's wearing suits. Nobody's wearing shirts. Nobody's wearing ties. Nobody's wearing hats. Wearing sensible shoes.
Yeah, well, my dad used to wear a hat until some point in the 70s. I think he just stopped.
Yeah.
Unless it was cold and he had a winter hat. But he had some kind of fedora type hats that just kind of disappeared after a while. So these guys are going to take Steve. And, of course, they discover that he's got a Captain America shield under his suit. And a costume. Although, interestingly, they figure out he's a superhero, but they don't know which one.
Yeah, and this is how we know they're definitely not Nazis.
Yeah, that's true. But they drag him out of the building, take the freight elevator to avoid witnesses. Then we see Sam and Layla at her apartment, and Sam is he's gotten a premonition, something's wrong. And she says, like, don't call Steve Rogers, let him him and Sharon iron out their differences. So instead they make out. Good choice.
Yeah, which Sam refers to as a velvet trap. Woman who would take an earthquake to shake me loose from this velvet trap. And I had to say, is that a euphemism? Like, what are we doing here, Kurt Jack? But yes, I think he's referring to the couch.
Yeah, I think we have to cut away for Comics Code reasons. But
get out of there.
So we'll just go back to the torture scenes. Back to the prison. And guy's complaining he can't lift the rocks anymore. So instead he's made to push a little yellow fruit with his nose.
For a month, right?
And do that 10 miles every day for a month.
Yeah, and this is where we're introduced to all the different guards with their visible stubble and haven't shaved. And, you know, there was a period where whenever an American artist wanted to depict a somebody from south of the border. They would usually be overweight, usually have lots of stubble, and they'd usually be sucking on a cheroot of some kind and saying, "Ay, caramba," something like that. It's something incredibly racist, usually.
Well, somebody does say caramba in here later. There's no I, but... now
that was the shorthand. That was the visual shorthand of, oh, this is a Latin person.
Now, these three guards are talking among themselves. Hector the Swine truly earns his name. Only Satan himself could match his sense of humor. There is a devil inside him, all right, a devil of a woman. And so they're talking about this woman. Turns out she's his cousin. But this conversation kind of was misdirection to me, because I was expecting her to be worse than the Swine, and she's not.
I mean, she's pretty bad in terms of, like, she's aiding and abetting this whole situation. She works there, and she's not actively doing anything to stop what's happening. And she's,
by omission, I guess she's not doing the best thing, but
she's psychologically torturing the Swine. and there's a weird parallel being drawn here between Donna Maria, who is, like, emotionally torturing the Swine, who is physically torturing all these prisoners, and Sharon and Cap. Like, there is a strangely sexist sub-theme throughout these issues, which is, this woman, women, they're just, can't live with them, can't kill them. That seems to be what they're trying to say. And it's like, I don't know why Jack's doing this, but there is a sort of kinky libidinity to Donna Maria, in that she's sort of sunbathing, she's wearing these revealing clothes, she keeps appearing, she's clearly denigrating and humiliating the Swine in front of his men. So there's a bit of a humiliation kink going on here, or something like that. And yeah, this is, we've gone from the sort of Nazi cosplay that we were pinging on when we saw the cover to, oh no, this is that X-rated Charlotte Rampling movie from the 70s that people of a certain age will remember. And I think that's what this is sort of zeroing in on. And I don't know how I feel about it, because I'm not quite sure what the point of it is beyond women, bitches, am I right? That seems to be what this is saying. I haven't finished the storyline with Donna Maria. After these issues, she's still around, so I'm not really sure how it's going to resolve. But there's a bit of Betty and Veronica going on between her and Sharon.
Yeah, and one's blonde, one's brunette.
There you go. And I don't know how I feel about that. It's weird.
Also, she bears a striking resemblance to Big Barda.
She does. She's another Kirby woman. Yep. she's large and muscular and buxom. Yep.
Yeah. So we wrap up the issue here. I know how you use it to amuse yourself with broken spirits, she says. He says, if you disapprove of my methods here, you're always welcome to leave Rio de Muerte, which we're told again and again means river of death. And she says, no, Hector, I'll wait. I know that a real man will one day come here among us to break you as you have broken others.
Yeah. So there's that.
So, yeah. Gee, what man might be coming?
Yeah.
Next issue, The Tiger and the Swine. Coming up, the story takes a hard left turn, and the first appearance of a villain who's now considered a classic Cap adversary. By the way, don't forget to check us out on Blue Sky. We're at Decon Comics. This podcast is part of the Deconstructing Comics Network, where we're grateful to our supporters on Patreon. Patrons get exclusive extra content. At $2 a month and up, hear Bat Bits, a Batman 66 exploration with my brother Paul. At $4 a month, you also get our new monthly show Silver Age Batman, where I discuss Batman comics from the 50s and 60s with either Paul, Patrick, Emmet, or Kumar, as well as our previous series on Jim Starlin's run on Captain Marvel and the first 50 issues of Amazing Spider-Man by Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, and John Romita. Check it out at patreon.com/deconcomics. and thanks for your support. You can hear the first 2 episodes of Silver Age Batman just by following our Patreon for free, including listening to our hilarious look at the story The Secret of Batman's Utility Belt from Detective Comics 185. Go to patreon.com/deconcomics and click Join for free.
Do you like comics? The 1960s? How about middle-aged gay couples gossiping about their neighbors? Then you'll love Checkered Past.
A loving examination of DC's Go-Go Check branded comic magazines published from February 1966 to August 1967.
I'm Dr. Bob.
And I'm Dr. Husband.
And each week we'll be your hosts on a trippy tour through mid-century 4-color madness. Checkered Past. Available wherever fine podcasts are downloaded for free.
All right, issue 207 from March of 77. So again, it says the tiger and the swine, and they hunt the most dangerous prey of all, a superhero. And we see a bunch of the guards with their vicious dogs out looking for Cap, and Cap is in the foreground. So we start out, Cap is, or Steve, I should say, is tied up in this airplane with the 2 quote-unquote cops and the pilot. And they think that he's still out cold, but we see that he's awake. He's facing us with them behind him. And, of course, pretty soon, so he's got some kind of shield device that burns the ropes around his wrists. And so pretty soon he's punching the guys. Grabs the pilot, says, turn this crate around and I'll think about relaxing this hold. But he says, I can't. If I don't deliver you to the swine, he will take our heads. How can he take your heads when you're not there? Just go someplace else. But then one of the cops tries to shoot at Steve and gets the pilot instead. And so then the plane crashes. So, yeah, this was where I was kind of surprised because I thought they were going to get back to the prison and Cap would be incarcerated, but it's not what happens.
No, instead we're in a, hard target, Jean-Claude Van Damme, the best prey is man story. They're hunting him in the jungle.
Yeah, so again, the guards with the dogs that we saw on the cover.
Yeah.
And Steve finds a place he can change to Captain America. Which
he sort of neurotically debates with himself about for a page. Oh, this isn't a job for Steve. This is a job for Captain America. It's strange because there's less of a alter ego divide between Steve and Captain America, I would have thought. It's less of a shift. I know it's still a civilian identity that is maintained, but I've always thought him thinking of Captain America as just his job. That's just what he does. It's not Spider-Man.
I was surprised that after that first panel on this page where he's thinking Steve Rogers had better make a quick exit and yield to someone who can handle this crisis in the right manner. In the next panel, he hadn't changed yet. And he's still running through the jungle and he's got his feet in the water. And says, I'm not making much progress. Got to stop and let Captain America take over. Well, yeah.
So what do we learn from this? What we've learned is that when Steve goes on a date, he wears his shield under his date outfit.
Yeah, under his suit pajamas.
Why is he wearing pajamas? Well, he needs a loose-fitting outfit because he's got a shield and an entire suit of armor.
Yeah, it's got to be uncomfortable.
No. It's going to chafe.
Yeah. So then he takes 3 panels to change while he's thinking about the situation.
This is why I'm saying something happened. Something happened here with this storyline, because this feels like like an edit. This feels like, there would have been a sequence where he was being pursued in his civilian outfit through a jungle. And it was getting slowly more and more trashed and torn and dirty and all the rest of it. But no, we established in the previous issue he had the shield underneath, which is bizarre. Makes no sense. So again, I think that was an insert. It reminds me of, there was an issue where a masked character was revealed on the last page to be Hawkeye. Because he pulled off his mask and he had the Hawkeye mask underneath that mask. I was like, why are you double bagging your mask? That is crazy. And this is what's happening here too. But I feel like the story changes. And I could be wrong. Maybe this sort of always was, but
that might be why the expectations raised about Donna Maria didn't quite pan out either. And she turns out to be quite a bit, at least somewhat better than Hector. But yeah, you didn't get that impression from the previous issue.
No.
About his shield, I don't know if it was established before this, but certainly since then it's been established that he wears his shield under whatever clothes he's wearing, which must be difficult with a tank top. But but I've seen that idea in other comics.
Like, even if it was like a, bullshit Pym particle, he enlarges it when he needs to, or Reed Richards unstable molecule, it's actually in the negative zone, he can then summon it when he needs to.
Just add water and instant shield.
Something nonsensical. But no, he's just lugging it around all day.
Okay, so he's out in the jungle, and he says, my immediate problem is to beat this jungle, find my way to a fair-sized town and home. So he's not intent on doing anything about the prison. He just wants to get out of there.
And you look at that panel. I think that mask has been drawn on after the panel was finished.
Huh.
Because it looks rougher. Like, the mask looks rougher. I think he was just Steve Rogers, the character, in the original version of this story that I'm pitching, was just trying to get away. Was just trying to escape, and would have been pursued. And maybe captured and sent to the prison and then had to stage a revolt or something. Because we even had the sequence of the prisoners where they're saying, oh, we need to, if we could fight back, if only we could take on the swine. And then there's no one has any spirit left. I feel your instinct was correct, that this was originally a prison revolt drama. And it got changed. And then we get, was it Fishman and stuff like that? Or Manfish, whatever the character was.
Now, Sam and Layla seem to have changed their minds. They were not going to disturb Steve and Sharon's conversation, but now we see they're in Sharon's apartment.
Yeah, the velvet trap, Sam had issues. Events concluded swiftly.
And I don't think Sharon would have called them because she's just kind of waking up from the gas.
Yeah.
So apparently they decided to go with Sam's premonition. And they figure out that Steve must have been kidnapped.
Yeah, which takes 5 panels to get to, and a lot of chatter to get to that point. And this is where, again, I felt, why are we doing this? Do we need this scene? Do we need any of this?
Yeah, I mean, you could have easily just skipped this and fill in a bit of dialogue. Like, I did go to Sharon's apartment, and apparently she was gassed and Steve was kidnapped. Yeah, you didn't really need this page. So Cap is in the jungle, and the guards are searching for him, and they're shooting the sleeping gas again. And this is where the guy says caramba when Steve throws his shield Cap, he's Cap now, throws his shield at the guy, and there's a whomp, and the gas spraying machine is shattered. They don't make them like they used to, I guess.
It's an adamantine shield, isn't it? It's a hard shield. It can break anything.
Yeah, I guess it's been established it's adamantium. Although I'm not sure if that was in the vocabulary at this point. But
You're right. That's more a movie thing. That's more a sort of...
No,
in the movie it's Wakandan. It's the Wakandan metal.
The vibranium.
Vibranium, yeah.
Right. Well, which is it now? I can't... It seems like there was some discussion in, much before the movies about what it was made out of. But yeah, you're right. I don't remember if it was adamantium or vibranium. Readers, write in and tell us. Listeners, I should say. So, yeah, Cap's slugging these guards left and right, throwing them around, and steals a gas mask from one of them. So we've got a whole page of fighting here, and then the Swine himself is there with a gun. I'm not sure why he's out there in the jungle, but Cap says, well, are you a talker or a shooter? And when Cap refers to him as the Swine, then the Swine shoots at him. But, of course, Cap has his shield, so that was ineffective. And then he hangs the Swine up from a tree by the neck of his suit and mentions that there are suppressed smiles among the other guards as they get the Swine off of the tree.
So now the guards have not only witnessed the Swine's cousin humiliate him in her bathing suit at the camp, but now Cap has humiliated him physically as well. So a woman's humiliated him, a man's humiliated him. This is what this is all about. This is, I feel like, I'm going to stop this line of inquiry. Sorry, there's something making me uncomfortable about this series of issues. It feels like, I don't know, we're straying into Tijuana Bible territory. There's something really weird going on here.
And Cap thinks, so long, Hector, you didn't get half the lesson you needed. Not yet, anyway.
He's going to spank him. Tim, he's going to spank him. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, more spanking. So Sam is in a suit and tie at S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters talking with
it's a regional field office, Tim. It's a regional field office, not headquarters.
Okay. Right, okay, sorry.
This is a low-level flunky he's having to deal with.
And so, of course, the other guy says, I've got our top agents working on this case, but right now Steve Rogers is a missing person, and so is Captain America. So Sam feels helpless, so the guy says, well, why don't you change the Falcon and go check it out? So he says goodbye to Layla, who's there for some reason, and next page, he's out flying around looking for a needle in a haystack, really.
Yeah, this is strange. But Layla is left with this guy. We're going to have a couple more scenes with Layla and this field agent, and he talks to her in a really aggressive way. Mm-hmm. And there is again that element of, oh, woman, leave me alone. Oh. Stop with all this. Nah. That's again. I don't know what Jack's trying to say here.
So we get 3 big panels of Falcon flying around with a lot of thought balloons, trying to figure out where Cap might be. Then we're back in the jungle with Cap, and he's wandering around the jungle, hoping that he's not going to end up walking in circles. He doesn't have a compass. If he were Batman, he would have one in his utility belt. But and he sees a wagon, hoping that the driver of the wagon could be helpful. But when he gets there, he realizes it's a prison work detail. So it's, from, of course, that very same prison. There are guards with shirtless prisoners doing work at threat of being shot otherwise. And Cap seems to be mainly hoping that he can get some food and water from them. But he said there's no other choice. He's going to have to punch out the guards because they're not going to hand over any food or water. So, a bunch of punching and avoiding bullets. And then Cap approaches the prisoners, who all just seem kind of dazed, and he says, they're like zombies, the living dead whose spirits have fled. It seems that Hector Santiago has done a real job on these men. Yeah.
I'm reminded of when we were talking about Commandy, we were mentioning a couple of times how many points of comparison there are with the Planet of the Apes movies. And that Kirby had clearly absorbed a lot of that. One of the features of the Planet of the Apes movies is Charlton Heston meets other humans, and then he's like, "Oh, they're mute. They've been reduced to this bestial state. They don't have anything to say for themselves. They've lost their personhood." And that's, again, this feels familiar to that too. It's like, but this is due to torture and exposure, and we see more of what the Swine's capable of in this next sequence. But that's what I was reminded of. I was reminded of that sort of image of these humans reduced to this bestial state that Kirby ran with in Commandy, and I felt like a slight echo of it here.
So apparently the guards have been telling the other prisoners about the Swine's humiliation by Cap, and so they are all talking about it among themselves, and the Swine finds out about it. So he doesn't punish the guards, he just punishes the prisoners. And we see these prisoners are all in these little metal cells with like little trap doors they can poke their heads out of, and the Swine's having a couple of guards wheel in this stove, and the prisoners are all saying, "We're going to fry in here with that furnace spewing heat amongst us," but that's the point.
Yeah,
so
they're going to die. Yeah, it's brutal. Like it's really bad. It's rough stuff. But we don't see it. It's not depicted. But I think the implication's clear. They're dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, they say we're going to die, and so presumably they do. But Donna Maria says, "Give it up, Hector. Punishing the prisoners won't stop a good story once it's passed along the prison grapevine." But I don't think that's going to change his mind. I must put an end to these wild stories. And we've got a full-page final panel of the issue. Hector says, "I'll put an end to our problem in the jungle. I'm going to bring him in myself and make an example of him before every man in this prison," meaning Captain America. And Donna Maria says, "I hope he breaks you, Swine. Each victim of your brutality cries out for vengeance. If he beats you, then his victory shall be ours." So this doesn't sound like a devil of a woman to me. Sounds like somebody who's against what Hector's doing and thinks he needs to be put in his place, but can't do it herself, apparently.
"I'll put an end to our problem in the jungle. I'm going to bring him in myself and make an example of him before every man in this prison." All the prisoners are men.
Yeah.
All the guards are men.
Mm-hmm.
The only woman is Donna Maria.
Yeah.
When Steve was gassed, Sharon was left in the apartment. They only took Steve.
Yeah.
So there's something about men being sort of depicted here. This idea of men need to dominate. Men need to be the most powerful. And the one thing that's reminding Hector, the Swine, that he's not powerful is this woman. So she is a devil because she just refuses to acknowledge his power. So he could be in this state of total control where he's forcing a man to roll a fruit stone with his nose for a month. But this woman in a bathing suit's just laughing in his face. And that collapses his power straight away.
Yeah, I guess it's not what came to mind when the other guards called her a devil. I thought she would be dominating him, but
she is
in a way. But she's not like pushing him to be evil.
No, she's not Lady Macbeth. But she is just refusing to acknowledge his power at all, and that's driving him. That's driving him crazy.
Yeah.
So there is a sort of psychosexual element to this. Yeah, the movie I was thinking of before Charlotte Rampling was The Night Porter. That's what I think this is sort of drawing on. But yeah, there is this sort of weird master-slave sadomasochism to these issues. And that's where I was uncomfortable because I'm not sure how deliberate any of it is. It must be. But like it's sort of straying into these weird areas because like I've never been comfortable with the sort of trope of concentration camp erotica, which exists. Like or prison, or whatever. It's a weird thing that's out there, and I feel like Kirby's sort of channeling it, like it's in here.
So the next issue box says, coming next, a jungle duel of epic proportions. Cap at his best, the Swine at his worst. Don't miss a page of River of Death. Now, you mentioned the coming of the supernatural element, and we see on the cover of 208 this manfish. He's not identified by name on the cover. And so I was kind of puzzled. Well, not completely puzzled, but the little flash says beginning, a startling new concept, a stunning new adventure. So we've still got the old story here, but it's overlapping with the new story that's going to continue beyond this issue. Now, what puzzled me here was, we immediately start out with the manfish on the very first page, and I was like, why wasn't this the cliffhanger?
Yeah.
I would have expected this to be at the end of the last issue. I think it maybe carries a little more weight than the Swine threatening to bring in Cap. I don't know. But yeah, it felt like a real left turn. Like he starts the next issue like, oh, I know, I'll throw in manfish.
Yeah. When I saw the cover, because we had gone from a cover featuring the Swine torturing prisoners in a prison, we'd gone from a cover where Captain America is shown in profile trying to escape prison guards in a jungle, and then we went to this cover, and I hadn't read the issue yet, and I was going, what's the armadillo doing in this issue? I didn't think he would turn up for like another 10 years or so. It looks like the armadillo from behind.
From what?
From behind, like armadillo has the similar design.
Right. There's a character called the Armadillo. Not even.
He's Captain America. He's a Captain America villain. He's a giant armadillo man.
I thought Spidey was the only one with animal-themed villains, but
yeah. But anyway, so I was like, "What are we doing? What's happening?" And then I read the issue, and the tone of the issue just shifts because now we're into this situation. Yeah, like, okay, so we've got Cap, we've got Donna Maria,
with much shorter hair suddenly.
Yeah, and she looks more sympathetic because she's a victim of possible violence. But we've also got some passed out character in the bottom left. Like, who's that meant to be? Looks like he's wearing a business suit.
Yeah, he's not wearing a military uniform. But I mean, I assume that it's supposed to be one of the prison guards, but yeah, he's not dressed like one. Yeah, so the fish monster, manfish, now his pose is a little puzzling because by the position of his legs, it looks like it should be his front, but it's his back. You can see from the top half of his body, it's his back, but I think a bunch of assets have just been recycled here. A bunch of stuff's got drawn over, recycled, reused. I reckon this whole story got overhauled, and we got something else. Yeah, maybe so. So on the first page, we see Cap wandering around still. Not really jungle area because you can see blue sky, but grass and trees and a body of water. I guess it's the River of Death. And in the foreground, the manfish is poking his head out and his hands. And at the second/third page, the big spread has the manfish attacking Cap.
We haven't had one of these for a while.
Yeah,
there's been like a limited one in the issue with the previous issue with the fight in the plane. It was sort of a more contained one. But yeah, this is a big splash action moment. It's a great action beat, but as a reader, there's a shift in genre that's just occurred.
Yeah.
Now Cap's fighting a monster, a river monster. That's what's happening now.
Yeah, I mean, the swine is a monster in a different way, but this is a literal monster. And so the guards are also there in the jungle, and they see that the manfish has got Cap. So they're shooting at the manfish because they want to get Cap. So the manfish jumps back in the water and swims away. So they grab Cap, and Cap is kind of weakened from his fight with the manfish. And they're saying the swine will treat you as did the manfish, but your death will be slower. You got to include those two hyphens in there.
Yeah, really needed to stretch that moment out.
Yeah.
Speaking of stretching out, now we've got...
Now we're back at the SHIELD office.
The SHIELD regional office. It's like the television spin-off of a movie where we go, let's see what these minor characters get up to on the weekdays. Like, I don't care. I do not care. I don't care about any of them.
So we see the same purple-suited kind of leader, manager figure talking with a couple of other guys in suits, and they're talking about they can't figure out where Cap is. And, we've only got vague information. He says, you expect me to relay this ambiguous tripe to Nick Fury? He'll hang me from the rafters. So he's after them to push harder to figure out where Cap is. But then also we're introduced to this other element that there are more and more like freaks out there, is the word he uses, like monster type figures, and they're keeping a file called File 116 on these monsters.
Do you think this was Kirby trying to, save his job, basically? Because he was like, oh, don't worry, guys. Look, there's going to be some monster issues coming. There's going to be some fights with monsters.
I'm Jack Kirby. I'll do monsters. It'll be great.
I'll stop with the Nazi stuff. Because as I've been indicating, I do feel like a forcible hand is on his shoulder at the moment, sort of steering him, and we know he's going to be off the book shortly. So this is my thought, that this interlude again is an inserted sequence to try and tease a shift in genre. But then we have Layla arriving, and this field manager, office manager type starts, bad mouthing her, like really talking down to her, like, get stuffed.
Also, I mean, their security is apparently terrible. Because he's lecturing her for walking in on a top secret office. Like, well, how could anyone actually get in if it's supposedly high security? But yeah, she says, this is my problem too, because Cap and Falcon are missing. My boyfriend and his best friend are unaccounted for. Of course, Purple Suit says, I'm certain that the Falcon's okay. He's out with the rest of us looking for Cap. She says, yeah, looking and perhaps finding the same hole that swallowed his best friend. Well, that's kind of a jump in logic, but it's possible, I suppose. But
well, to be fair, Tim, her and Sam were just swallowed by a hole to another dimension.
That's true.
So she's just been through this.
So she mentions that she sees monsters everywhere, and Purple Suit says, hear that? Do you think she knows? The other guy says, no, the girl is merely strung out.
So this is the second incidence of some sort of parapsychology in, with Sam and Ada, where they're getting premonitions, they're having visions. There's also this sort of hinting at some sort of panpsychism coming into the story. So yeah, I think this is where Kirby was going to introduce. I never liked these things. Like Chris Claremont was a devil for this. He'd always hint at like a storyline, 2 or 3 storylines ahead. And what eventually happened was he was kicked off the X-Men, and a bunch of those stories never got resolved. Still don't know what happened.
So Falcon is out in the mountains somewhere. I don't know why he would expect to find Cap out there. and he sees a huge nest. So another suggestion that there are monsters afoot, but we don't come back to that in this issue. So we go back to Cap, and he's got his strength back after his manfish fight, and he starts beating up the guards. So we get a couple pages of this, but then someone's throwing dynamite. And so Cap is trying to avoid all this dynamite being thrown at him, all these explosions, and the Swine is using the dynamite to force Cap towards this tiger pit. Now, they keep calling Cap the Tiger here, or Tiger, and I'm like, is Mary Jane Watson here? Hey, Tiger. I couldn't think of the Tiger as an address in any other way.
Yeah, and it was a bit confusing to me because he's forced into this pit, which has all these sort of sticks and lumber or whatever to sort of hide the pit. But we'd previously seen Falcon flying over a giant nest, which again had sticks and branches and, all stacked around it. And for a brief moment, I was like, oh, wait, did Sam somehow accidentally find the location before this happened? But no,
maybe he's in the tiger trap too.
Yeah, it's a completely separate place and it's a completely separate situation. But it was just
different environment.
The coincidence tripped me up.
So Cap is in this pit he's fallen into, and the Swine is standing above him. Yeah, Hector Santiago, small-time prison official and brutalizer of men. Small wonder they call you the Swine. It's all true, Tiger. So he's intent on... Well, he says he's going to let Cap live, but he's going to shoot a flamethrower at him while he's in the pit so that he will remember this. But Donna Maria stops him by throwing a dagger at him and knocking the flamethrower out of his hands. So the Swine throws her in the pit too. But Cap catches her. And so it's suggested that there's no escape now and they're going to get burned by the flamethrower. But then there are shouts from off-panel, look, the manfish, he's coming out of the river, he's attacking, shoot, shoot, bam, bam, pock, pock, pock. And so apparently the Swine is just frozen in fear because otherwise he would run away and this wouldn't happen. But the manfish comes and kills him.
Yeah.
The manfish knows exactly which character to kill, I guess.
Yeah. Gotta get that karmic justice. Yeah, this sort of it's just an abrupt conclusion.
Well, and it's kind of a symbolization of this storyline being killed off by the next one.
Yes. But Tiger and Swine, they've been sort of building up this series of references from the previous issue,
like Mongoose and Snake.
Yeah. Or was it William Blake, Tiger Burning Bright? Is there something there? I don't know, but it was clearly building up, and then it gets redirected. But the previous issue was titled "The Tiger and the Swine," so this is all intentional. But I don't think the story was told. I think it gets intercepted by this other story, as you're saying.
Yeah,
the monsters
I think
story.
so. So now nobody living is above the pit now, and Cap grabs some of the sticks that are on the floor of the pit and makes a makeshift ladder, just sticking them into the side of the pit, the wall of the pit, and they climb out and they see guards lying around and Hector lying there dead. And then suddenly the manfish is there. He's not there in one panel and he's right between Cap and Donna Maria in the next one. Cap throws his shield, of course. And so trying to fight the manfish, and then suddenly... So we see that there is some kind of a whistle that apparently Cap and Donna Maria can't hear that's causing the manfish to just walk away back into the water. And she figures out that it seems like he was reacting like there was a dog whistle, an ultrasonic whistle. And Cap says, say, you may have a point there. She says, if I do make a point, then that thing has a master, someone who has trained him to kill. And a voice from off panel says, survive is the correct word, my dear. Cap says, wha? And last page, we have a big panel, and it's the very, very first appearance of Arnim Zola, which surprised me. I had thought that he might have been around earlier, but
this is it. This is the biogenetic experimenter on monsters, Arnim Zola. Whereas in the movies, he's briefly introduced,
just a guy,
and then we see him as a computer software program. He's an AI in Winter Soldier.
Right, right.
So like they didn't go with this.
No.
Because I think, by the time you and I meet this character, we probably have already been introduced to, Kang from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. A robotic body with a face on the chest.
I was never into the Mutant Turtles. That was kind of a little too late for me. Certainly as a kids targeted property. I mean, I remember it coming out in the 80s, but my brother and I didn't think it sounded all that interesting. So,
well, I mean, just on the note as well of like Cap's appearance, like the previous two panels on the end of the page, look at the faces. Look at the shift in faces. Mm-hmm. So Donna Marie and Cap is all of a sudden very slim and young looking. And Donna Marie looks older, and she's got very defined facial features. And then right next to it, we're back to blocky Cap, older Cap. And then she's more delicate all of a sudden, and younger looking.
Yeah, well, in that next to last panel, there's this shading on her cheeks that makes her look older for one panel. Yeah, it's weird. Okay, so that's where we're stopping for this time, with Arnim Zola entering the picture and the Swine completely exiting the picture rather abruptly.
Killed literally off panel by giant genetic freak. Mixed bag. These issues, real mixed bag.
Yeah, but that's probably right. That when things seem kind of like it often means there's editorial interference in the story. We've seen it in some of the other Kirby comics too.
This is our assumption based on what we've learned about how he was treated by the editors he worked under. So there is this expectation of, all these stories are getting shortchanged. I don't know. There's also the possibility maybe he got bored. Maybe
I want to draw some monsters.
Yeah. Look, who's to say? But there is a disjunct. There is a moment where things just shift, and it's an artificial moment. And as a reader, I'm left stymied. I don't know what's happening.
The sudden appearance of the manfish at the beginning of this issue, I think, is that because there isn't even any suggestion in the previous issue that there are monsters anywhere.
No.
Let alone in the River of Death or in the mountains or whatever. And S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't say anything about them.
Yeah, Rio de la Muerte. I mean, it's a secret political prisoner camp where men are tortured to death. That's enough context for De La Muerte. We don't need a manfish, But yes, then we needed to introduce this other element, and then we're told the guard says, "Oh yeah, that's why it's called this." It's this monster, not because we've been torturing men
retroactively.
Yeah.
I wonder. I mean, Arnim Zola. I mean, Kirby must have had him on a list of things to do, but maybe he just got moved up a bit because there was some editorial whining about the prison storyline.
Yeah. Stan Lee's like, some of my best friends are South American dictators. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So thanks for listening. Thank you, Emmet. Captain America and the Falcon, issues 206 to 208, appear in the collection Captain America and the Falcon, The Swine, published by Marvel. At deconstructingcomics.com, you can connect to us on X, Facebook, YouTube, and Blue Sky, and find links to subscribe to the podcast. You can comment on any episode on our site, drop us a line at mail@deconstructingcomics.com, or talk to us. Click the Leave a Voicemail link on the left sidebar of our site. Are you making a comic? Send it to us and we'll do a Critiquing Comics episode about it. Our theme is by J.B. Anderton. The music backing the promotion of our Patreon is Change by Jazar. Next week, we once again cross over with the comic book movie Oblivion podcast in our countdown to this summer's Fantastic Four First Steps, reviewing all 4 previous Fantastic Four movies. This time it's Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer. Till then, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Deconstructing Comics.